taught that gossip tears communities apart. But according to evolutionary psychologists and anthropologists, it may be one of the things that holds them together.
Because whether you realize it or not, gossip shapes who you avoid and how you decide whether someone is worth trusting before you even meet them.
This is Hold That Thought, the podcast that puts words to the thoughts and contradictions you carry, but rarely hear spoken out loud. Every episode, we explore the ideas, relationships, and invisible forces shaping how people move throughout the world.
This week, we're looking at gossip, not as celebrity rumors or backstabbing, but as one of humanity's oldest social techniques. We'll explore how we are evolved to gossip, how it helps communities cooperate, when it becomes destructive, and why actually gossip serves an important purpose.
Because if gossip isn't just idle talk, but one of the ways humans build trust, enforce norms, and protect each other, it might deserve a second look. Hold that thought.
Hi, my love.
What did you end up cooking last night for dinner?
I didn't end up cooking. It was just an overwhelm.
Treat yourself, Mama.
It was a treat yourself. I did go grocery shopping, did get everything I want to cook for this week, which will include, it's going to be a make up my own recipe sort of thing,
Nice.
but tofu and these really yummy chewy noodles from Trader Joe's.
Oh, the ones I loved. Yeah.
They're really good. I'm going to make like a peanut sauce with them. I'm excited.
Cool.
I'm assuming you watched the finale of
Love Island.
I
did.
Are you feeling lost today without it?
No, I think my life needed to be freed of that a little. It was really fun to watch, and I'm so glad that Brynity won. And I just can't wait to see what happens this week. Kenzie is going on Call Her Daddy, and
Why
that's going to be
Kenzie?
crazy. Just because she's one of the bigger characters out of the season.
Really?
Yeah.
It's always the ones that are a little bit polarizing.
Yeah, she was a little polarizing, and also people made comparisons between her and Sincere, saying she was the female version of Sincere. I can see where that argument comes from, and I think they're completely different. I think her going on Call Her Daddy will be interesting because I think Alex Cooper is going to probe about the gendered conversation there.
Well, you know what we're doing right now?
We're gossiping.
We're gossiping, and that's this week's
Chisme.
episode. Chisme, the best Spanish word. I feel like
love
it's
that word.
onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
We're talking about gossip today, part of our conversation around things that we have historically labeled as negative and understanding a little bit more what might their redeeming qualities be, or just bringing a more nuanced lens to them, I would say. And gossip is one of those things that I think we all inherently push against. We don't want to be associated with being a gossip. Studies have shown people are asked to rate whether they like learning gossip or learning facts, like trivia facts more. They will say trivia facts, but their brain activity clearly shows they like gossip more. Like, we just have this intuitive desire to not be seen as a gossip and not partake in it, but we'll get into it today. It's pretty ubiquitous as a practice, and it has some value to it. Something you and I talked a lot about in coming into this episode was, what is the line between gossip in the negative sense? One could say trash talking. Gossip in the definition that we will explore today, and then catharsis or reflection, or what you do in therapy with a therapist or with your close confidants to work through an issue that you might be having with someone.
Or tapping into its original purpose, which we'll talk about. I was a little resistant almost to do this episode just because my least favorite people are people who are what I think of as common enemy friends. Like people who hate on the same person together, and that's how they bond. And to me, I associate those people and the thread of negativity through those connections as being connected to gossip. And I mean, I do love gossip. I had a friend on the phone this weekend. At the very end of our call, she was like, "Oh my gosh, Becky, I have a piece of gossip for you." And I was so excited. If you'd been tracking my brain activity, it would have been firing.
Lit up like a Christmas tree.
But I would say generally, I don't thrive in the conditions of just disliking the same things as other people or complaining about the same things. Like, I obviously complain, but
it's a layered conversation. When researchers and academics look at it through the lenses of anthropology or sociology, there's clearly just the fact that humans gossip. But if we can get comfortable with our own line of, this is a gossip that I will not be participating in. And I think that's because we're nice people. Sorry to pat ourselves in the back. I think we're nice. We don't want to sit around talking shit, but we do participate.
I don't like the word nice. I like the word kind.
Okay, can you just explain the difference?
To me, nice feels like...
Flip it.
It feels meaningless.
An example I wanted to give is that this family friend was talking about how she has a friend who never participates in gossip.
Whoa.
And
see, that annoys me.
Well, okay, exactly. And so
that's my line.
She was saying that she'll be like, "How is Jane?" when you talked to her last week. And this friend will be like, "That's between me and Jane. You can bring it up to them.
Whoa.
And multiple friends have tried to be like, well, we kind of want you to figure out the line, because that feels almost like scary
Shaming.
when you say that, or like shaming for asking the question, and like
something's
want
wrong.
you to figure, want you to find your own line where it's okay for you. Not if Jane's coming to you like, don't tell anyone, but if Jane's like, yeah, I've been good, or like having a hard time, but I'm figuring it out, like, is there a way in which you telling your friend, well, actually Jane was having a hard time, could use a call. Is there a benefit to that, which we'll get into? But I think even just hearing this family friend say that she knows someone who literally will always say, that's between me and Jane, made me realize how infrequently we come across those people.
Yeah, true.
There are very few people, and you can, listeners, look deep within, who actively don't ever participate in gossip. And that gets us to our academic definition of it. Simply talking about someone who is not present. That is the academic definition.
Yeah.
This could be positive talk, neutral talk, or negative talk.
It doesn't have a moral cast to it.
Yes. And we've built up that moral cast over time, which we'll talk about. And there are ways in which I think that's beneficial to keep, the conversation of kindness at the forefront. But it's also just neglecting a lot of the nuance to the topic.
Yeah.
Want to know the origin of the word?
I would love to.
The origin of the word gossip comes from the 11th century word god-sib, which was a spiritual relative, typically like a godparent at a baptism. So 11th century, anyone who is going to be the godparent of your child is often referred to as a gossip. By the 14th century, in what is termed the Middle English period in linguistics, this word has broadened to mean any close family friend or acquaintance or relative, usually someone who is in your tight-knit group of community, typically women who are gathered to support a mother during childbirth. God-sib. You tracking?
Yeah, I'm just like, where is this going? That's crazy. Like, what's sib?
We're talking Old English.
Okay.
There was no negative connotations tied to it, and it was really a noun, a person. But then by the 16th century, mainly like the mid 1500s, by then it referred to someone who spent time chatting or participated in idle chatter. Okay. I was reading up a lot about how this kind of cast on the word from a familial tie, someone there to support, veering into this negative context of idle chatter, really started to coalesce with a lot of the witchcraft and the persecution of groups of women. One of the first known use of the words was in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. And it was defined in the 16th century soon thereafter as a woman, specifically, who had a light and trifling character, who was a newsmonger or was a tattler. Some linguistic scholars have suggested that this accumulation of negative connotations, specifically focus on women, was very much a response to how threatened institutions were by groups of women talking.
Wow, it's to subjugate them and keep them quiet.
And men and women, which we'll get to, the data shows equal amount of gossip happens. But in this time when the definition or the connotation of the word from God-sib into a person to a gossip person to the act of gossiping, when that was happening, women were confined to within the domestic sphere. They didn't have safe spaces to go talk with their friends. Yeah. So where were they going to get that conversation? In public places. Men were going to these public clubs and taverns and had the freedom to go meet up and talk about whatever they wanted. Yeah. Women outside of their home had to do it surreptitiously in the streets.
Right.
And so there were a lot of reasons why gossip
posed a threat,
and also why it became tied with women as this negative connotation.
Yeah. Wow, that makes me think of, I have the image of in The Handmaid's Tale where they're walking, they each have a buddy and they're walking down the street and they have their hat things and they are gossiping. They're actually sharing very important information usually. So it makes sense that would pose a threat because it's their way of communicating in a time where they are subjugated.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And it makes me so sad and mad how strong the roots of misogyny are.
Yeah. And there's some crazy examples of how gossips were treated in the Middle Ages once that negative connotation was tied to women. There was something called the scold bridle, which was literally, imagine when a dog has to be muzzled.
Yeah.
This muzzle first appeared in Britain in the 1500s, and then it spread to a lot of other European countries. It was particularly popular in Germany. The scold's bridle was a heavy iron mask that looked like a cage over someone's mouth, and it fit over a woman's head, and it had a flat piece of iron on it, and it was often spiked, and it would often be used to spike a woman's mouth or tongue, kept a woman from speaking, and it was used as literally a way of castigating a woman for being a gossip.
God.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And that's again, in Handmaid's Tale, which, mind you, is present day.
Yeah. scary.
They cut out women's tongues or like cut off their clitoris for the corresponding sin that they have performed.
And all of this to say that you and I, we both don't like talking ill about people. We both don't like being mean.
Yeah.
And obviously, as is everyone, has grown up in the social contexts that have been passed down to us since the 1500s to say gossip equals bad. Right. And we're having a very hard time parsing out our own understanding of gossip. We're having to put so many qualifiers on it. We're wading through all these other perspectives given down to us by a
socially inherited filters.
Yes.
And I think our ancestors' hands were forced. You didn't give us space to talk, and you didn't give us the rights of men. So you forced our hand to be gossips, and now you punish us for it.
Yeah.
I know that's an oversimplification, and this boils my fucking blood.
Yeah, I know. And it's fascinating that it became a punishable thing to gossip when it is, as you'll speak to shortly, from an ethnographic and anthropological lens, is deeply a survival tool that we have inherited from our earliest ancestors.
There's an anthropologist, Robin Dunbar, who proposed the social grooming hypothesis.
Okay.
He authored a popular science book titled Grooming, Gossip, and the Evolution of Language. And it talks about why humans have evolved to gossip. Cool. And the conclusion he draws, just to give you a spoiler, is that it was to build and maintain social bonds and manage reputations, which is actually really interesting. So in his book, he explores how human language evolved. And his opening line is about our propensity for gossip. Why on earth is so much time devoted by so many to the discussion of so little? He's alluding to the fact that gossip is viewed as trivial, but he writes an entire book about its true purpose. And so that was kind of a rhetorical question.
Got it. Yeah.
To start off the reader.
Be like, humans aren't actually spending this much time talking about trivial things.
It has to have a purpose. He discusses how eventually, with the growth of the population, early humans were no longer able to physically groom everyone in their tribe or group. So as they grew to roughly 150 people, what became known as Dunbar's number, Robin Dunbar,
that was like the max.
It was a critical mass, essentially. Physical grooming became too time consuming. And so language then solved the problem. This is, I should say, one hypothesis.
Of many theories, yeah.
Language, he argues, solved the problem because one person could speak to several listeners simultaneously. And that kind of confused me because I was like, grooming has purposes beyond just connection. It has practical purpose to like clean each other. But he talks about how grooming was a one-on-one dynamic and language lets one person strengthen relationships with several people at once. It's economical in that sense. Gossip serves the same social function that grooming serves in other primates, being maintaining friendships, strengthening alliances, and reinforcing social bonds.
Really quickly, how does he differentiate between gossip and language?
So,
or is he conflating the two a little bit for his purposes?
He argues that those go hand in hand because he's using your definition that you provided as just talking. It doesn't
about
have
other
this moral
people
cast.
That aren't there.
Yes, it's talking about people who are not present.
It's a news sharing, information sharing of sorts.
What he is saying is that in the same way that grooming, to have someone physically close to your body and grooming you, however that looks in primates or early humans, I don't know, picking dung
lice off your hair.
Picking lice off your God. My mom's going to be triggered by that. She was in the trenches with me in elementary school with lice. Okay. In the same way that grooming, this is me trying to distill the message. I don't know if this is what he would say. With grooming, you're physically allowing another person into your space. And that is intimate in one way that builds those bonds between you and another person. Language developed after we reached 150 plus people per group or tribe because we could no longer spend that time, he's claiming, physically grooming each other one-on-one. It just didn't make sense. There was too much needed for the group. And so instead, language developed so that you could develop that form of intimate connection with more than one person at a time. It's interesting. I would be curious what other theorists have to say about that. But as he claimed, gossip serves the same social function that grooming serves in other primates, maintaining friendships, strengthening alliances, reinforcing social bonds. And I'll later get to this, but the host of the podcast Normal Gossip, she says gossip thrives best in intimacy. It wants a cupped ear, not an arena. And so in the same way, there's a physical intimacy with grooming, and then there's an emotional intimacy in communicating verbally and gossiping with those other early humans that he's describing.
Wow. And other research shows, to your point of connection and facilitating that literal physical bond, research shows that people, after they gossip, have a boost of oxytocin, which is literally your cuddle hormone, or your hormone that is spiked after you have sex with someone. Inherently, our bodies have been built to have this hit of feeling close to someone after you participate in gossip with them.
Wow.
Which kind of substantiates what he's talking about.
And it makes total sense that that would elicit a physiological response.
Yeah.
I was also seeing that there's also a physiological distinction to be drawn between active and passive participation in gossip.
Ooh. Like whether you're just overhearing it versus actually being the one to talk about it.
Matthew Feinberg, an assistant professor of organizational behavior at the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management, and his colleagues explored this in a 2012 study published in the Journal of Personal and Social Psychology. When students heard about another person's antisocial behavior or an injustice, their heart rates increased. When they were able to actively gossip about the person or the situation, on the other hand, it soothed them and brought their heart rates down. The act of gossiping, Feinberg explains, helps calm the body.
Wait, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're suddenly not bearing the brunt of this thing alone. You can process it with other people, which gets us to the point we were talking about a little bit of like, where's the catharsis versus the being mean versus the
when is it
like
actually
therapy?
serving a purpose?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting that in this example, it's in response to a social ill. I would be curious to know if the heart rates of people increase because there's an empathy element of like, whoa, what if I were them and participated in breaking this norm that would lead to me being socially excluded. In a primal sense, that is really threatening.
Versus when you get to talk about it, you're suddenly not as isolated anymore in the situation. Like you're suddenly being able to work through that potential isolation.
Well, the isolation you're perceiving another person is about to have or experience.
Is it about whether you see it live or
participate? It says heard about another person's antisocial behavior or an injustice. I guess the injustice, maybe given that wording, is independent of that person.
No, I think or that person. An injustice acted upon that person. This is similar to, I heard this transgender reporter named Tucker Woodstock, who is a host of a podcast, Gender Reveal. He did an episode on gossip and he used the words gossip as unionizing against a power that has done an injustice. Yeah. And I think this is getting to it of like suddenly you are able to communicate and share info about someone that has done something wrong. Yeah. And you feel empowered, and also you are empowering the people around you that you share that information with. Yeah. That intuitively would make sense to me that would feel like a calming physiological sense because you suddenly act. Yeah. It's suddenly having a form of action tied to the information you just digested.
That's kind of like what we talked about last week with anger. Yeah. In this New Yorker piece, I was reading about Normal Gossip, a podcast hosted by Kelsey McKinney. The reviewer of Normal Gossip distills some of McKinney's opinions and sentiments as the host of Normal Gossip, which is a podcast where people write in, right?
I think so. They're most salacious or exciting gossip.
Yeah. And then Kelsey reads it out loud and offers her take. I think she maybe has a co-host.
I think so.
Yeah. They talk about how gossip isn't just entertainment, it can redistribute power. McKinney argues that gossip can break down toxic power structures, create whisper networks that protect vulnerable people, expose abusive behavior before formal institutions do. And the article also notes that #MeToo began as gossip before it became public reporting. Wow. I didn't know what a whisper network was. I mean, I could kind of infer, but I found out that it's an informal system where people privately warn one another about someone who may be unsafe, abusive, or untrustworthy, especially when there isn't enough public evidence or institutional support. So like an example of something that would be said in a whisper network is don't stay late alone with that professor, or I wouldn't work for that manager if you have a choice. The information spreads person to person, often quietly, hence the whisper, because speaking publicly could carry social, professional, or legal risks. And usually these whisper networks emerge in settings where formal systems aren't working. Hollywood's an example, academia, politics.
It's hard when gossip has this negative connotation and almost sometimes can be conflated with rumor and holds such a valid and valuable place as sending warning signs and protection, and is coming up in this time when fake news and spreading rumors and like sabotaging people by canceling them if you disagree with them makes all of this really difficult.
Totally.
It's so nuanced and so context specific
Yes.
and requires so much care. And people's lives have been ruined by gossip when they didn't deserve it. And people who needed to be taken out of positions of power, that has successfully been done through gossip. So it's like, it's so hard. We just read the book Strangers for a book club. And it's all about this woman, Belle, writing about her husband leaving her. And she exposes her husband deeply over the course of the book over his mistreatment of her and their finances and how secret he was. And he lost his job.
Yeah.
I did not like him in that book. I think he should have, I'm not going to opine on whether he should or should not have lost his job, but no one would have known about that if she hadn't written her book. And her book was a form of gossip. And she did it to warn, I think, and empower other people, saying I was a very educated, well-off woman and I didn't know enough about my finances. And therefore I'm telling you this story to empower you.
Yes.
And it took the world by storm. And there were parts of the book where I was like, I feel weird reading this because it's about this woman and her children and this guy. And she's empowered to tell her story, but did her kids want her to tell the story? It just gets difficult.
It does get difficult. Messy and way more complex. An analysis is required, or warranted, I should say, than when we were groups of 150 max. Or not max, but you know, it's
when that was the threshold.
So different.
Yeah.
So many fewer layers and dynamics and considerations to be made.
Yeah. We've brought up before Love Story in this podcast.
Yeah.
It's a fictionalized TV show about the love story between Carolyn Bessette and JFK Jr. And there were times where I was watching this that I felt very weird watching that show because it did feel gossipy. The
family says it's complete gossip.
Yeah.
And,
they say it's rumor. Right. And now we're getting into rumor versus gossip.
Yeah. The salacious element feels really critical.
The salacious. That's a good point. Maybe that's a good element between, you can't really describe, let's say I go into therapy and I'm really working through something about someone, which we all do. Yeah. There's an element of salaciousness in it because it's coming through my perspective or my filter. But if it's only in the name of entertainment for others, does that have a benefit?
Stand-up comedians gossip or rumor, but that's for the purpose of entertainment. And I would say that there's value there.
Yeah.
The host of Normal Gossip, Kelsey, argues that part of the appeal of gossip is voyeurism without consequences. And Saimi, the one who does the feature on Normal Gossip for The New Yorker, describes the show as offering pure voyeuristic, candy-coated pleasure by letting listeners observe social dynamics without personally knowing anyone involved.
Yeah.
The goal of gossip about strangers is not to try people according to their secondhand deeds. It is to increase our own understanding of the world, to allow us to find enchantment and discovery in places we didn't expect it. That's Kelsey McKinney, the host, giving her take.
It reminds me of this woman, Emily North, and she wrote that in her family, gossip was never considered rude to us. It was our own way of exchanging our perspectives on the world as if it were a fabulous gift to each other. Familial gossip is how I constructed the foundation for my beliefs on politics, the rights and wrongs of friendship, and dynamics of love. The way someone gossips is how I begin to understand the scale of their value systems. How one perceives a specific situation can be more revealing and intimate to me than sharing a meal with a friend or sleeping beside a partner. And I think it's interesting, this voyeurism is a way of getting a purview into a situation that you can start to build up your own moral belief system or understanding of rights and wrongs without actually having to go through it yourself.
Right. And you can observe the reactions of people around you, if it's not one-on-one, if it's in a group, that also provide cues. If you think of a parent having a friend over or two and you're hearing one share some gossip about someone else and you see how the parent's friend responds, you're learning social cues and learning what elicits a negative reaction versus a positive reaction, what is morally corrupt and what is upheld.
It's a teaching, a social norms of sorts.
Yeah. Dunbar, the researcher I talked about earlier, his book cites research that says 2/3 of conversation is about social topics. And this is reframing gossip as a dominant feature of human connection and communication rather than just this occasional vice like we're talking about. He says that positive gossip is one of the ways we bond communities. Negative gossip can be useful because it allows the community to police itself. If it becomes malicious, it can actually cause communities to break up into smaller subsets that don't interact.
Right.
So that's where there is the line. And he actually sees value in positive and negative gossip, and it's the malicious gossip that he condemns.
What's the difference, do you think, between malicious and negative? Like, malicious is in the intent to harm versus negative, just like...
Negative is about enforcing norms. Like cultural expectations.
Versus punishing of others.
Yeah. Our episode about the social contract. I think this intersects pretty well with
definitely.
that. I read a piece in Insights.
I saw this too.
Insights by Stanford Business, which is their business school blog, I think. And it cites Michelle Gelfin's research on how gossip stabilizes cooperation in communities. A few years ago, researchers attached recording devices to a few hundred Americans and sampled their conversations over several days.
And it would just turn on randomly. I saw the same thing. It would turn on randomly throughout the day. So you wouldn't know when you were suddenly being recorded.
Yeah. Did I tell you my idea for an app that would break the world? Our phones would record us at all times, and it would Russian roulette 30 seconds to someone in our life, either about them or like just anything from our day.
Why would anyone choose to do that?
I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. It's like a Black Mirror situation. It's more of a funny like thought experiment, but it would be helpful.
Thought experiment.
Okay. They found that these volunteers spent on average 52 minutes per day having conversations about people who were not there. In other words, gossiping. Gossip is a ubiquitous feature of human communication, explains Michelle Gelfand, a professor of organizational behavior at Stanford Graduate School of Business. Everyone seems to do it no matter where they live. You can go back to the history and see that it was prevalent in Mesopotamia and Greece. Anthropologists talk about it being at the center of life in hunter-gatherer societies. Yet from an evolutionary standpoint, gossip is puzzling. It's unclear why gossiping, which requires considerable time and energy on a person's part, as well as giving away potentially very valuable information, evolved as an adaptive strategy at all. What's in it for gossipers? So this is getting at the crux of the other researcher's book, which was
the social connection.
Yes. So to explore the social evolution of gossip, Gelfand assembled a multidisciplinary team of multiple researchers. In an article published in PNAS, which is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America, they concluded that gossipers have an evolutionary edge. They spread useful information about people's reputations and also encourage people to behave less selfishly. So gossip is helpful because it disseminates information about people's reputations, and that can help recipients of this information connect with more cooperative people. As more people are thinking about others' reputations, they're getting concerned about their own reputations too, and they don't want to be the subject of future gossip, so that deters them from acting selfishly. And that's so interesting. It is really so tied to reputation when I think about it.
Yeah. I was also saying that younger people engage in more negative gossip than older people. You start gossiping around 5, but the quantity of negative gossip is higher in younger people and children, and you kind of grow out of that negative. Yeah. I think that almost ties to the evolutionary standpoint of like you have more to learn and more policing to be done of the social norms when you're younger and learning about your place and how you want to live.
And you're less discerning.
And you're less discerning, true. And you have less of the I don't want to be mean, but it does.
And I don't want to be known for being mean.
True. Right. That's probably a huge
The
part
reputational damage is less threatening when you're young, I think, because you're less aware of the repercussions.
Of being even known for being a mean gossip.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is more gossip because children are deeply trying to understand what is the norm and what are...
confused.
Is that normal?
Jimmy just dropped trow in the middle of the schoolyard. Is that
that's not
right?
Okay? Exactly.
Many people, particularly Americans, assume that gossip is usually disparaging or undermines social cohesion. This misconception, Gelfand says, has crowded out our understanding of the positive nature of gossip and its role in the evolution of cooperation. Her team did find, however, that cooperation thrived only when gossipers' information was accurate.
Right.
So that's the difference
rumor
between
mill.
rumors.
Yeah.
And they also talked about how being known as a gossiper changes how other people behave around you. So if they know you tend to share information about others' behavior, they'll assume that anything they do around you, this is intuitive, could become known to the rest of the group. But this is an interesting twist. Therefore, when we are around people who are gossips, who are known gossips, we're more likely to behave well, cooperate, and avoid acting selfishly. They call that opportunistic because
we want that to be shared.
We're strategically choosing to cooperate when there's a reputational incentive.
Totally.
But again, this only works if the gossip is known to be a reliable source, because if it's someone who is known for exaggerating or lying or spreading false rumors, that information won't hold any water.
It's interesting. My parents have been spending a lot more time in this small town in Vermont, and this dovetails a little bit to our town crier episode. There is a little general store in the town, and the previous owner was this woman who lives in the town and is beloved. And the general store became a de facto source of information about how people were doing and what they might need in the community. And people came to the general store kind of looking for that. Even if it was not explicitly said, there was a sense that if you told someone at the general store that your tractor was broken and you needed help, there would be some form of community that could learn about that at the general store and do well by it and make something happen for you. And that's almost like where gossip and information sharing and community really come together. That's a beautiful part of the gossip.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Gelfand and her researchers built a computer simulation where virtual people, or agents, could choose different gossip strategies and copy the strategies that worked best. Over thousands of simulated generations, gossip became the dominant behavior. About 90% of agents ended up gossiping. Interestingly,
right. So that was just like a example of human behavior, like a simulation of human evolution
but thousands of iterations.
Right.
Interestingly, many agents were opportunists. They only cooperated when they knew someone was a gossiper who could damage their reputation. This created a feedback loop. Gossipers kept opportunists honest, and opportunists increased the influence of gossipers by caring about their reputations. The result was a society with much higher levels of cooperation, even though many individuals were acting out of self-interest.
Ooh.
It would be interesting to hear what that philosophical debate would be between, like, the ethical dilemma there seems independent of its social utility. Like, you have a cooperative society that might not be
altruistic, but it is cooperating, and that might just be fine. I mean, it's the same thing where everyone says, like, no good deed is purely unselfish. It's like, okay, maybe because doing good makes you feel good too.
Yeah.
And great. The good deeds
It's better
happened.
than the alternative, which is not doing the good deed.
Yeah. That's really interesting, though. I think that's a really cool study because it basically simulated the why gossip has become so entrenched as a form of communication in our society. Or it posits what the positive feedback loop might have been.
Right.
Cool. I don't really have like a tie the bow on this. I just think it's really interesting to consider or question our own perspectives on gossip and where the negative connotations have come from.
Yeah. And like going back to my reticence to go into this topic, I now understand a little better what it is that I mean, the people on TikTok advocating for gossip and saying, like, if you can't gossip, I don't want you around.
That is clickbait. That's not a nuanced conversation.
It's not. I mean, maybe it is clickbait, but it's also, I think, how a lot of people feel.
Like
I
you're
sense,
boring,
at least
you're
online,
high ground. You're like holier than thou if you can't get into it.
Which is like your family friend, the friend of theirs, Jane, that won't engage at all. I get the frustration with that, and I would never go so far as to say, if you can't gossip, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do think this conversation helped me understand where it can be helpful, how it evolved, and it's not purely a negative.
Yeah, I echo all of that. I think I'm constantly finding my own line, and maybe it's constantly shifting. Well, I don't know if I want to admit to this, but is it obvious that you find utility in talking about other people when you're struggling with them to other people?
Yes, that's obvious and a good thing to say, I think. It's true. It's honest.
It's true. Like there is a benefit even.
Yeah. Processing.
I find utility in processing with others.
Yeah, me too.
I think a lot of people do. And then there's finding your own, is this a processing thing for me? Is this just a sharing how someone's doing in the name of information sharing so someone else can maybe help them? Or is this some form of like just
to get a rush of it, honestly turning the holier than thou on its head? Does it make you feel better
about yourself
to talk negatively about this person?
Yeah.
Shot him for a duh.
And we get to just all, as you go, just interrogate all of that. My form of gossip that I would most often do, I feel like, was with my grandmother when she was in this nursing home. Well, it was like an independent living home in Massachusetts. And I would call her. We would have things to talk about, like books or things like that. But often I felt like it was a fun topic for me to be like, so what's the gossip
What's the drama
in fill in the blank home?
Yeah.
And she would often have fun things, and it was lively conversation, and it was harmless. It was a form of real social connection between the two of us. That
just reminded me of, you earlier brought up the example of therapy as gossip.
Yeah, that's where I think I was saying like the processing thing versus like the, but even obviously you process with people outside of a therapist. You have other safe people that you process with. So maybe it's also being discerning of who those people are.
Yeah.
Like the whole trend on TikTok right now, like, am I the asshole? That's one form of like one big trend of gossip, isn't it? A little bit.
I don't know it.
I know a trend and you don't.
I know, never before seen.
No, you do.
I mean, I've heard of am I the asshole?
So it's like you like tell a big long story of like, I didn't invite my best friend to my wedding because she slept with my soon to be husband a week before the wedding. Am I the asshole? It's like clearly people bidding for approval of their, or like socially sanctioning their behaviors,
wanting to be have their feathers fluffed.
Exactly. And it by telling a story about someone else.
Yeah.
And that's a trend on social media, which is not the cupped ear of someone who is a quiet confidant.
Yeah.
That I think feels totally different.
It just so happens that it gets you likes and sometimes money. Think of like 20-part series. I don't know if you've ever seen that. People will do story times, multiple part story times, like 20-part story times about something, about a wrong that they've endured at the hands of someone else, and you make hella bank off that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If you're in the creator fund. Sorry. What was I going to say? Oh, well, this just as a closing thought, this reminded me of our episode. It was an early episode about the difference between oversharing and vulnerability. I think one of the ways we closed it out was talking about how it's just important to keep a pulse on your motivations.
Yeah.
And like what's driving you to share something. And I think in the same way, it's helpful for me to think about what is motivating me to gossip.
Totally. Completely agree.
And what I'm getting out of it. And I just want to, help calibrate it by asking myself those harder questions.
I love that. I love you.
I love you.
Mwah.
Oh my God, T's such a bitch. I'm gossiping. I'm rumoring.
Oh, you're rumor mongering about me? Thank you, Phoebe Fry, for this episode's music.
And thank you, Emily Kiernan, for the beautiful cover art.
If you like this episode, please like, share, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next week.